Are you frustrated with the lack of answers from traditional medicine? The truth is, our health problems do relate to our dietary intake. Dr. Robbins has helped thousands of people apply principles of nutrition for vibrant health. Vitality Unlimited is proud to present Dr. Joel Robbins as he explains the relationship between health and nutrition.
By the time we get through this session, we will understand why colds are good, why only the very, very healthy do not get colds, and only the very, very sick do not get colds. We will understand that a fever is beneficial. We'll understand why coffee drinkers and smokers have a tough time kicking those habits. We'll understand why chronic degenerative disease, such as cancer, arthritis, diabetes, we'll understand what they are. We'll also understand that they actually help prolong life. They actually prolong life. If it weren't for them, people would die a lot earlier than they do. And we'll also come to an understanding of why the 80-year-old man who seemingly has violated every principle we're going to talk about today is in relatively good health, and his 2-year-old grandson is dying of cancer. Well, after a year and a half in practice of doing what I was taught to do, I became very frustrated. So much so that I sold my practice. I wanted to move on to another profession. I actually applied to go to seminary. I told my pastor this story not too long ago, and he said, "You were so frustrated you wanted to apply to seminary?" He said, "You were frustrated." Why was I frustrated? Because people were not getting well. I do what I was taught to do, symptomatic relief, but they weren't well, and I could not sleep at night. So there's got to be more to health than this, than just treating symptoms. And so I began to study and research. Now, our authorities have always been the medical profession, so that's where I began to look. Found out some interesting things. In 1900, people over the age of 40, 20% of the people over age 40 suffered from a chronic degenerative disease. That's cancer, arthritis, diabetes, heart disease. 20% over the age of 40 suffered from one of those diseases. Now, since 1900, we have gained more knowledge in the area of health and disease than all of history combined. We have, in this country right now, more researchers per capita than any nation in the world. We have more money going into medical research than any nation in the world. Our hospital industry is the 5th largest industry in this nation. We also have the best doctor-patient ratio of any nation in the world. Now let's go back to the original statistic. In 1900, 20% of the people over age 40 suffered from a chronic degenerative disease. With all of the medical advances that we have acquired since 1900, what do you think has happened to that percentage? It's got to go down, right? Because we're smarter. We know more about body work. We have better medications. Isn't that right? Today, 70% of the people over age 40 in this country suffer from a chronic degenerative disease. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. One other little thing I'll throw in here. In the last 15 years, there have been 4 medical doctor strikes around the world. And that means in a certain metropolis, the doctors did not show up to work, the hospital, their clinic. I'm talking about major cities now. And in each of those strikes, what they found was that the death rate dropped between 40 and 60% when the doctors weren't working. And it was not because the patients left town to find care elsewhere. They checked that out. They stayed there. The doctors weren't working. So why is it that we are sicker now when we're more knowledgeable about this body? Well, next we look to the natural health care. They must have some answers, right? Well, you talk about confusion of vision. Every book you pick up tells you the opposite of what you read yesterday. In principle, what I see is the natural health care profession practicing the same medicine that traditional health care is practicing. If you go to the doctor, you say, "Doc, I've got a headache." You say, "All right." He writes you a prescription, aspirin. You take the aspirin, the headache goes away. What do you know about the cause of your headache? What was the cause of the headache? Oh, it's logical. Just think about it. Had a headache, took aspirin. What was the cause? It went away. He had an aspirin deficiency, correct? I mean, it's obvious. It's just pure logic. You don't have to be a scientist to figure that out. But this is what happens. We go to the doctor and we say, "Here are my health problems." And he says, fine. He looks it up, finds out what the diagnosis is, and gives the recommended treatment, whether that be a drug, surgery, or on the natural health care side, vitamins, herbs, whatever it is. I'm asking you, are there such things as herbal deficiency? Are there such things as vitamin pill deficiency? How do we get a vitamin deficiency? Was it from not taking the pills? How about not eating the right foods? Is there such a thing as a drug deficiency? You see, what we're missing is the cause. Now, I was going through school. One thing really bothered me, just before I got into all this nutrition business, natural health care, is that in studying pathology, 95% of diseases known today, when you look under each one and read all about it, it gets down to the last paragraph, it says cause, 95% cause unknown. Now, how can we treat something if we don't know what caused it? Well, the truth of the matter is we're really not interested in cause in this country. We're interested in just feeling better. There are two reasons that we are sick. The first one is ignorance. We just don't know that coffee is harmful to us. We just didn't know the Twinkie is bad for us. Ignorance. We don't know what is the cause of disease. We haven't looked at that. We're too interested in just treating the symptoms. What is the other reason we're sick? We said ignorance. The other one is laziness or indifference. I'd like to put another word in there. We'll call that responsibility. Personal responsibility. Today we're going to try to take care of some of the ignorance. And if you don't want to feel guilty after you leave here today, now is the time to leave. Because you will have some responsibility on your hands when you leave here. But I tell you, health is not something we have to worry about. It is a gift. Think about this. Health is a gift. Disease is something you have to work for and earn. We have that turned around in this country. We think I go through life's merry way and I hope I don't get disease. After today, you'll know that it's your choice. If you want disease, that's up to you. If you want health, that's your choice. Personal responsibility. Health is a gift. It's ours automatically. All we have to do is treat this body as it was designed to be treated, and health remains. Disease is something that it creates in reaction to the wrongs that we do to it. And you will see that concept as we go on. What we like to do in this country is go to the doctor and say, Doc, here are my health problems on your lap. Thank you. You take care of that. And he's quite happy to write a script for whatever because it pays for his Mercedes. You know? Now listen, I'm okay because I drive a Lincoln, so I'm fine. But there's an unspoken contract between doctors and patients. Doc, you make me feel better without me having to change any lifestyle or take responsibility, and I'm happy to keep paying you money. But if you make me take responsibility, or if I'm not feeling better, I'm leaving. I'm going to find somebody else. You see, we want the instant relief without asking the question, why, without taking on personal responsibility. And look at this country. We're in the worst nations in the world as far as our health condition. Now, we don't realize that. You know why? We go to the doctor every year, annual physical, and he says, you are healthy. But he qualifies that. For your age. Right? You've all heard that. For your age, you're healthy. What does that mean? We compare ourselves to other Americans. We find out we're in the same health boat as they are, and we assume it's normal. For example, 3 years ago, the American Medical Association told us that it is now considered normal, catch the word normal, for an American over age 60 to have osteoporosis or calcium deficiency. It's not normal to have a disease as we get older. It is common. It is common, but not normal. We need to compare ourselves to other nations. For example, in northwest India, in the Himalayan mountains, the Hunzakat Indians, they have been well documented and studied by doctors from all over the world. These people live to be 120, 110 years of age, disease unknown to them. They'll work to just a few days before they die. They just kind of wear out and die one day. Now, these poor people don't have the wonderful advantages of all the health care that we have in this country. They don't have great doctors and hospitals there. They don't have the advantages of the foods that build strong, healthy bodies, like lots of red meat. In fact, they don't eat any meat. They don't have dairy. They don't have McDonald's. You know, all those things you have to have a healthy body. Someone needs to educate them. Some of you have heard of Dr. Norman Walker. He's written several books on juicing. He ran a health resort in Arizona. And a few years ago, he took his usual afternoon nap, no health problems whatsoever, did not wake up. He died in his sleep. Dr. Walker was 130 years of age. Some of you have read a book by Paul Bragg, Dr. Paul Bragg, on fasting. Wrote another one on water. He drowned a few years ago. He was surfing. He was 95 years old. Now, this is the way our body was designed to live and die. Now, today we're not talking about extending life necessarily. That's up to God. That's not our choice. What I'm talking about is the quality of life. You know, our medical scientists tell us, well, we're extending life now. We've got 72 years of age average now. Hey, wonderful. I'd like to ask the question, what is the quality of the life from age 45 to 72 in this country compared to 1900? People did live to be 70, 80 in 1900. There's no comparison. They were very, very healthy in 1900 compared to this country today. So we need to look beyond our peers and quit comparing our health picture to theirs. What is ideal? Because if we look at our neighbor and he's just as sick as we are and we accept that as normal, then we're not going to take responsibility. We're going to continue to live in sickness. We've got to take responsibility. What we want to do today is explain some of the principles of how our body works, how food affects our health, how our lifestyle affects our health. I have found in working with patients that when I can explain to them why sugar is harmful to them, they're much more motivated not to consume it, or why coffee is so detrimental to them. You know, I consider and tell you that, in fact, let me ask, how many of you drink coffee? You got some cards for the clinic we want to hand out. We need some patients here. Did you know that the amount of caffeine in one cup of coffee is a fatal dosage? 72 to 120 milligrams of caffeine injected directly in the bloodstream will kill you. How many of you still drink coffee? Yet, you know, some people will drink, 3 or 4 cups a day. Sometimes more. And they don't die. In fact, they feel a little better. Well, you know, I consider and tell you, no, it's bad for you. It's bad. It's a fatal dosage. Drink a cup of coffee and you say, so what? I feel better when I drink it. So today you're going to learn what it's doing to you. And maybe that'll help to motivate you not to drink it, to start taking responsibility for health. So we're going to lay a foundation of how this body works so that you understand when you hear, don't eat this, do eat this, you'll see what's going on in there. And there'll be no mystery to disease. In your manual, open up to page 3. As you listen today, if you don't like what you hear, that's fine. You can come and go. That doesn't bother me at all. When I see people in restaurants, patients, eating everything they should, it doesn't bother me a bit because I don't have to wake up tomorrow morning with a headache. They do. In fact, I kind of like it when they eat something like that because they're going to call me and come in. I get some more money, you see. But if you don't like what you hear, that's fine. I want you to just remember something, though. Every system of belief or philosophy or religion or whatever that's come and gone, there's always somebody standing up front telling everybody else how it is. Whether that system of belief was right or whether it was wrong, there was always an authority. Now, all I'm asking you to do is don't look at me or anybody as an authority. Truth is something you have to seek out for yourself. You're responsible for God, for the truth that you grab a hold of and run with. Innate intelligence. When we are first conceived in mother's womb, there is a spark of life given to that first cell that's going to direct the growth and development of that cell into a perfect human being every time. It's amazing. Without a doctor there telling it how to do that. Can you believe that? In fact, the only time that innate intelligence is unable to complete that task perfectly is when man interferes. Such as, about 25, 30 years ago, medical doctors gave pregnant women who were suffering from morning sickness something called thalidomide. What happened to those babies? Deformed babies. Now those babies are sterile. Man interfered. Innate intelligence tried to do the best it could under the circumstances. It wasn't health. Now that innate intelligence knows one thing and one only, and that is health. And that is the message it continually projects to those cells as they're growing and developing, and once we leave the womb, it still continues to project that message. In fact, it never stops. Until you take your last breath, it is still sending out a message of total health. That's a new thought for you. Here's what you've thought all your life. That innate intelligence had the program, when I reach about age 30, 35, I'm supposed to wake up with kind of a headache and feeling groggy, mid-afternoon energy slump, going to be popping a few aspirin here and there, some allergy shots. By the time 40, 45 rolls around, have some pretty stiff, achy joints, maybe some regular prescription medication. Age 55, 60, arthritis, heart disease, even cancer, that's acceptable. Because that program, right? That's in the computer program. We're supposed to be that way. No, not at all. The only thing that innate intelligence knows is health. Then why are we sick? Because we interfere with that message, as you will see today. We do it out of ignorance most of the time, and lots of times out of laziness. Innate intelligence, it knows how this body is supposed to act and be. A few years ago, a patient came in and said, when I woke up this morning, Reuben was just lying there. He wouldn't eat anything. He's got a fever. I looked at her. I said, now, I know your husband. His name is Brent. You don't have any children. Who's Reuben? She said, oh, that's my dog. I said, hey, I'm moving up in the ladder. I've become a vet now. She said, what do you think I should do? I said, you don't have to worry about it. That dog has innate intelligence. It has instinct. It knows exactly what to do when all dogs do the same thing every time they get sick. They know they have to go see the veterinarian. I said, just a few minutes, that dog will be asking for the car keys and want to go down and get some antibiotic. It's supposed to do that. No, I said, every time a dog gets sick, it will rest, it'll fast until it's over. They usually crawl into some quiet little place and let it happen. I said, I'm not a vet, I can't tell you to do this, it's your choice. But if I were you, I'd just put some water out and just let him be. Now, here's what you'll find if you do that. On the 8th day, he'll be up running around, everything normal, begging for food. She called me on the 8th day. How did you know? I said, innate intelligence. It's no mystery. This body was not created haphazardly. When we look at all of nature, is there any haphazardness to any of nature? Why would this body be any exception? I also have a problem. This is those sleepless nights back after a year and a half in practice, and I think, God, you created us, and you gave us everything we need, including an instruction book. Why would you leave out the instructions on how to take care of the physical body? Was it that we were supposed to stumble through in ill health till maybe the year 2000 when man is smart enough? I couldn't believe that. All the answers had to be there. So I said to this gal, I said, now I want you to remember this, because in a few years from now you're going to have a baby. And you're going to call me up, and you're going to say, little Brent has got a fever. And I'm going to say, remember Reuben? Well, sure enough, I was giving a lecture in Dallas, Texas, and I got called out of the meeting, off the stage. She was panicking. And she said, little Brent has a fever. And I said, remember Reuben. She mouthed it with me, and she said, I just had to hear it. I know that's right. I just had to hear it. So just know that we've got a marvelous, marvelous director in control of this body. There's no games about health. Innate intelligence. Learn to trust it. Learn to rely on it. You might want to use another word for innate intelligence. Mother Nature. Instinct. Just the built-in desire to be healthy of this body. Now, what is junk food? That's a term we've heard kicked around. Twinkies. Right? Junk food. Well, what exactly is junk food? And then secondly, what is the consequence? What is the consequence of consuming junk food? To understand what junk food is, we need to know why we eat food. Now, there are 6 reasons. The first one is glucose. In other words, whenever you're hungry, this is what your body's asking for, these six things. It's not asking for pizza. It's not asking for a carrot. It's asking for these 6 nutrients. You know that if a pizza is thoroughly digested, and I'm not saying pizza is good, but just listen. If a pizza is thoroughly digested, when it is absorbed into the bloodstream, is it pizza anymore? No, not at all. How about a carrot? No. It's these 6 components, if they're all there. Protein is the next one. Now, our body uses glucose to make energy. It uses protein for building structure. Building structure. We do not get energy from protein, as much as the beef industry would like us to believe that. This is the reason you can lose weight on a high-protein diet. Our body ideally would like to use glucose or carbohydrates for energy. It's very easy, efficient process for the body to take carbohydrates and convert them to energy. We have 2 other choices that can be converted to energy: protein and fat, or the fatty acids. If you cut out the carbohydrates from your diet and you're consuming primarily protein, what are the 2 choices the body is faced with to find its energy? Fats and protein. Where's the fat? The fat on the body, right? The body fat. And you want to lose it. So the body looks at those 2 and it says, all right, which is the least expensive to get energy from? Yeah, the body fat. I'll break that down. I'd rather do that than break down protein because that's so expensive to the body. So we can lose weight on a high-protein diet. Now, it's one of the worst things you can do because it burns out the system very quickly. It's such an inefficient process to burn fat cells at the cost of a high-protein diet. High protein really revs up the metabolism. You remember, it's been 15 years ago now, there was a pre-digested protein product came on the market, the weight was just melting off. People started dying because to process that much protein, the body couldn't keep up with it. So you can lose, the only time the body will use protein to make energy is in times of starvation. That's the only time it'll do that. So all that to say that when you think you're eating protein for energy, it's not. Energy comes from carbohydrates. The only reason that protein seems to give energy is because it stimulates the body. And hang on to the stimulation because we're going to address it a little bit. Fats, what do we use them for? Well, we use them for making hormones. That's the main thing, certain vitamins that our body makes. We also use them for padding and insulation. Some people feel they need more padding than others. The next item is vitamins, which are used as catalysts in the body. A catalyst is something that helps a chemical reaction be more efficient. An analogy would be oil in the automobile engine. The engine runs on gasoline, just like we use glucose for energy, but how efficient is that motor burning the gasoline without oil? Not very efficient. So we use the vitamins to help us process the glucose, the protein, and the fats into body structure. And then minerals. Now minerals are also catalysts, but they have a dual purpose because they're also used as part of the structure of the body. I'm sure everyone is aware of the bones. There's a lot of calcium in them. So we're going to group vitamins and minerals together under the catalyst department. And then we have water. That's number 6. That's the 6 reasons why we eat food, right there. Water is used in every metabolic process that goes on in the body to maintain life. It's very important. That's why we need to eat food. What is a junk food? Very simple. Let's run a little comparison chart here. Real food versus junk food. Does a carrot have glucose? Yes, absolutely. How about a Twinkie? Yes, it does. Now understand something about sugar. Whatever form a carbohydrate comes into the body, whether it be a starch, whether it be lactose as milk sugar, whether it be sucrose as table sugar, or fructose in fruit, once the liver gets through with it, it's all glucose. It'll convert every type of starch and carbohydrate into glucose, and that's the only thing the cells will use. So we'll give them equal check marks. All right, protein. Does a carrot have protein? Yes. How about a Twinkie? No. Fats. Does a carrot have fats? Yes, sure. How about a Twinkie? Yes, it does. We're going to put a 0. Our government sent some scientists up to Alaska to find out why Eskimos who eat nothing but raw whale meat and blubber do not get any cholesterol-related problems or heart disease. You know, that's what we're told, right? You got cholesterol problems, get off the fat, fried foods. And here, these guys are Eskimos who live like they used to live. There's still some around, consume primarily fat. What they found out is that they eat the fat raw. Because raw fat, whether it be animal fat or fat that's found in the fruits and vegetables, has something called an enzyme with it. That's another word for vitamin or catalyst. Has an enzyme attached to that molecule to allow our body to process that fat and use it fully as it was designed to. But when you heat the fat, what happens to the enzyme? Kill it. The body does not have the enzyme then. It can't make it. And so that fat is non-usable. It's sticky. It sticks inside the arteries. So eat your fat raw. Does a carrot have vitamins and minerals? How about a Twinkie? Oh, it's got those synthetic ones in there. That makes you feel good, doesn't it? Give me some synthetic nutrition. There have been studies proven to prove that the synthetic vitamins actually cause more problems than not having any at all. One study, this doctor took 3 groups of dogs, and she fed the first group whole grain cereal. That was their main diet. The next group was white refined. That was enriched, had the synthetic vitamins in it. Now the first group did fine, lived in health all the way through. The other 2 groups got sick and died at an early age. But which group do you think died first? With the enriched, because of the chemicals, the petroleum byproducts that are in there. Enriched. There are 50-some nutrients in raw whole grain wheat. When they get through processing to white refined flour, there are 3 or 2 nutrients left. And the government says you can't sell nothing. So back in the 50s, they started putting in these synthetic. And they call it enriched. Should be called depleted if they were honest, huh? How about water? Yes? Twinkie has a little bit of moisture in there. Now, that is the difference between junk food and real food. Now you know. The junk food is missing part of the package. Big deal, right? I eat Twinkies all the time. They don't bother me. I feel good. I get energy. What difference does it make to the body? In this country, we have a real problem with looking down the road. You know, if it feels good now, it must be okay. And we will see a little bit later in this session that sometimes the things that we do wrong, we don't even pay in our lifetime. Our children and our grandchildren have to pay. That's a sobering thought, isn't it? Let's say that this board up here is one cell inside the body. We've just eaten a Twinkie, and the liver sends out the glucose into the body. The cell picks it up to convert it to energy. In order for the cell to convert this glucose to energy, it's going to go through something called the citric acid cycle, which is on page 7. The citric acid cycle. And the citric acid cycle is nothing more than a series of chemical reactions. A series of chemical reactions. It actually has 10 different reactions in all. We're going to list 5 very generically and simply up here. Keep it simple. Now, glucose molecule goes to chemical reactor station A, where it's going to go through a chemical transformation, getting it one step closer to usable energy. That's the energy that you feel. Known to a scientist as ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So it goes to chemical reactor station A, goes through transformation, goes to chemical reactor station B, where it goes through an additional change. And it keeps going around the cycle. As I said, 10 steps in all, and the final result is usable energy. What I didn't tell you was that at each of these chemical reactor stations must be a catalyst present in order for these reactions to happen, convert glucose to energy. What were the catalysts in our food? Vitamins and minerals, right. Vitamins and minerals. How many vitamins and minerals were in Twinkies? 0. So how in the world does the body convert the glucose to energy without any catalyst? And yet you've all experienced getting some energy from a Twinkie. Somehow the body comes up with these vitamins and minerals. It can't squeeze them out of the Twinkie. It can't make them out of thin air. Where does it get them from? From the body. Absolutely, from the body. One of the main catalysts used to convert glucose to energy is calcium. Calcium. And so the body says, all right, you've got the glucose here. Where's the calcium? And the liver says, I don't know. I didn't get it. This is all I got. And so innate intelligence, remember, health, always trying to be healthy. But you know what its number one priority is? Survival. Just survival. Health is actually number 2. The only message it knows is how to be healthy, but it also knows how to survive. That's number 1. And so innate intelligence says, all right, we got to survive here. Bones, I'm sorry, we're going to have some calcium. Now, I know that you need every molecule you've got there. I know you have no stockpile somewhere. But it's a matter of survival. And the bones say, but you did this yesterday, and the day before, and you haven't paid back. You kept promising you're going to pay back, but I haven't seen anything. Yeah, but this idiot won't eat any real food. I'm doing the best I can. You realize, the bones say, that you're creating osteoporosis? And so year after year, now can you see why we don't notice it immediately? Because our body covers for us. And so by the time we reach age 60, and the doctor takes an x-ray of those bones, and he says, you have osteoporosis. You know how much calcium and mineral is out of that bone? 40%. 40% of the mineral content of a bone must be removed before it's diagnosed on x-ray. Otherwise, it looks normal. How many of you still eat Twinkies? Okay, so sugar, white flour, anything that is refined that converts to glucose, this is the story. Junk foods rob the nutrition from our body to survive. Now you understand, by the time age 35, 40 rolls around, you start slowing down, not as much energy, not as much giddy up and go. On page 8, we want to talk about a concept called stress and stimulation. Stress is the only thing that actually creates disease. When we say stress, we have three categories. You can see them there at the bottom of the page: mental, emotional, sensory, physical stimulants, and the top of the page is nutritional stimulants. Mental, emotional, physical, we could actually group sensory and physical into one group, and then we also have the nutritional stimulants, those three groups. All stress. They all borrow from the body, nutrition and energy from the body. What is a stimulant? A stimulant is anything that causes the body to go into an abnormal reaction at some cost. We mentioned coffee earlier. Coffee is a toxin. Toxin. A toxin is known, and that's back on, so you don't have to write it down. It's defined on page 6, right about the middle. Toxins are any substance that the body cannot use in any way. And, the and is very important, it costs our body nutrition and energy to deal with that toxin. Arsenic, for example, is not in any way usable by the body. Why do we die? Why doesn't the body just flush it out? Well, because the cost of flushing it out is more energy than we have available. And the body spends every ounce of energy it has and dies. Now, if you take something like coffee, that's not as potent, we can come up with the energy to deal with that coffee. So it doesn't kill us. We can find the energy, but there is a cost. And that's the part we don't see. So all toxins are stimulants. What happens when you drink that coffee? What goes on in the body? Why do you feel better? As I said earlier, some people drink as many as 2 and 3 cups a day. Can you believe that? There was one patient came in, he was in the 60s. He said, you know, my only problem is I have to get up to use the restroom too many times a night. So I was thinking prostate problems, and I thought, well, I'll just ask the question before I examine. How much coffee do you drink? Oh, 8, he says. I said, well, 8 cups of coffee a day, that's not enough to keep you up through the night. He said, no, that's 8 pots of coffee. 64 cups a day. I said, no wonder you feel good. Well, as we got to examining him, he had all kinds of health problems. He was not aware of them because he felt great. Caffeine was stimulating his body, disguising what was really happening under there. And this is the great delusion of stimulation. Look what happens when we put in stimulants. And this goes for any chemical, food coloring, food preservative, caffeine, anything that is foreign to the body, something it cannot use in any way. There's our liver. Here's the bloodstream. On top of the kidneys, we have a pair of glands known as adrenal glands. When the caffeine hits the stomach, the body senses that it's about to be poisoned. And it sends a signal to the adrenal glands. The adrenals, we's in trouble. We need your help. And the adrenal glands release adrenaline, which has 2 actions. The first one is to cause the liver to release a lot of glucose into the bloodstream. So the glucose floods the bloodstream. The other action of the adrenal glands is to stimulate the cells of the body to increase their metabolism. They have the glucose available to increase their metabolism. Why? Because the body needs to increase the metabolism to process that caffeine out as soon as it starts hitting the bloodstream. Otherwise, we would die. Question. All this increased activity that we feel better on, where does the glucose from? Well, you say, I put sugar in my coffee. All right, that'll work. But more importantly, how about the catalysts, the vitamins and minerals? Where do they come from? Coffee? Not at all. They come from our body. And so every year that we consume stimulants, we are making our body sicker or less vital. What do I mean by vitality? Let's say that this is one cell inside the body. And a healthy cell, when we're sleeping at night, will make what we will assign a number of 100 units of energy. And that energy is supposed to get us through the next day. Did you know that your body makes most of the energy that you're experiencing today made it last night? You see, if that wasn't the case, every time you got tired, you could just eat some more. You'd never have to sleep, right? But eventually your body says, that's enough. I need some rest to make more energy. So a healthy cell, 100 units of energy. But now we've been depleting our body of nutrition for years, and now let's say it's working about 50% of capacity. You wake up this morning, you have 50 units of energy. Question, how do you get through the entire day in only half the energy? Stimulation. Right. When this energy is gone, you will begin to incorporate stimulation, rev up the adrenals, the thyroid gland to get you through the rest of the day. Now, everybody has their favorite stimulant, and everybody knows about how often a day they have to consume it to keep going. Coffee, the 5 main ones that Americans will use: coffee, sugar, red meat, nicotine, salt. Did I miss anybody? Coffee, red meat, sugar, nicotine, salt. One fellow said, I'm not hooked on coffee. I said, you're not? Okay. Tell you what, tomorrow morning, leave off your coffee. He said, I'm not hooked. I just enjoy it. The fact he repeated to me, I'm not hooked. I knew he was. He said, I just enjoy that in the morning. I said, fine, leave it off. It's no big deal. He called me 10 o'clock from his office. He said, if I don't get some coffee, I'm going to kill somebody. I thought you weren't hooked. I thought it wasn't either. If you'd like to know where your general level of health is, very simple process. Tomorrow, leave off everything except raw fruits and vegetables. It's the only things that will not stimulate the adrenal glands. And see how far you get through the day before you're ready to kill somebody. All right? If you can't get out of bed before you have that cigarette or a cup of coffee, that fellow drinking 64 cups a day, he had to have a full pot just to get out of bed. Just to get enough energy to get out of bed. I said, you can't do that. You can't drink 8 pots of coffee and not have to use the restroom. How do you do that? 8 cups of coffee. He said, I drink it very quickly. So leave it off. When you run whatever energy is available, as you wake up, you'll know it. And then you just think through your day, how often do you have your fix? And you know mid-afternoon, well, it's time for that sugar snack or that cup of coffee, that cigarette. So you've never consciously thought about that. Why do you get sleepy after a big meal? What? Nobody here, right? I'm sorry, huh? Well, it's not toxins. It's the result of toxins. It's because this sick body does not have enough energy to digest that terrible meal and keep you awake. Literally. It says, boy, if you want me to digest this, I'm going to have to shut you down to free up the energy that's keeping you conscious so I can digest this meal. So what have we learned to do? What do we do after we eat? Well, if you don't sleep, you have to go to work. Stimulation, right? You have sugar, cigarette, or coffee, or all three. If you're really in bad shape. So next year, your body's going to be sicker because you've produced more vitality. How do you make up the difference? More stimulation, without even realizing. We just keep adding and adding. Now, all this time, our body is being stimulated, and so the true picture of health is not being made known to us. I've heard people say, you know, if my body was all that wonderful, it would tell me when I'm violating nature, when I'm making it sick. I said, oh, it's tried to tell you for years. You know that groggy headache you have every morning you wake up? What do you think your body's trying to tell you? Do you think your body's programmed to give you a headache every morning? Do you think that is by chance? You think your body is waking up saying, hey, I've got a caffeine deficiency. Get the coffee quick. No, that's your body saying, idiot, yesterday you blew it. This is what you get. And I'm giving you this headache so you'll not do it again. So we think it's a caffeine deficiency or an aspirin deficiency, right? So each year we will add more and more. Now, it reaches a point, though, that our body cannot cover for us anymore. That's when we end up in the doctor's office with some major disease in our hands. So where did this come from? You know, I've been having my annual physical every year. You've been telling me I'm healthy for my age, and I've been feeling pretty good drinking 6, 7 cups of coffee a day. You see, the health is being undermined underneath the delusion, cover of stimulation. If I challenge you to do that, just leave off everything except raw fruits and vegetables tomorrow. Now, if you do that for about 3 days in a row, you won't get out of bed on the 3rd day. You just feel so terrible because your body needs that stimulation. You'll figure that out before too long. Inorganic versus organic. Page 10. If we take an x-ray, this actually happened with a patient of mine, and said, you know, you have osteoporosis. She said, yes, I knew that. In fact, 10 years ago, doctor took an x-ray, said, looks like it's developing. So What have you been doing since then? Well, I've been drinking milk, taking calcium tablets, so that's wonderful. Let me ask you this. Why is there arthritic spurs or calcium deposits here on the ends of the bones in the joint, and yet your osteoporosis is worse than it was 10 years ago? What has the body been doing with all that calcium? Don't know. Did you have arthritic spurs 10 years ago? No. New development. If we milk a cow, pasteurize her milk, and feed it to her little calf, do that every day, how long will that calf live? It's fresh milk. All we did was heat it up a little bit to kill some germs. How long will it live? 1 to 6 months. And you take this milk to the chemist and say, what is wrong with this milk? And the chemist analyzes it, and he says, well, it's got glucose in there, and it's got water and protein and vitamins and minerals. That woman was drinking pasteurized milk. Most calcium tablets that you buy, even in health food stores, is inorganic calcium, calcium carbonate. It's very cheap. That's why they use it. It's very hard. We cannot assimilate it, or very, very little. So you see, all that milk she was drinking, the calcium was going to the outside the bone, depositing, because it didn't have enzymes to get inside. We need to eat living food if we're going to maintain our health. That's the only way, and we can't get it out of a bottle. It has to come from the living factor. Now, if you turn over to page 12, we have there the hierarchy of food preparation. What we want to demonstrate here is what happens to our food the more that we process it. How much nutrition are we removing? How dead are we making it? And we start off, of course, with raw. That's the best. And then we have juiced. When you juice food, you're maintaining the nutrition in it, all of the nutrition. If we dehydrate or dry food, we're going to lose 2 to 5%. That's assuming it's dried without chemicals. Read the labels. Then frozen, freshly picked or frozen, we'll lose about 5 to 30% of our nutrition. Steamed, 15 to 60, depending on how long you cook it, steam it. Cooked, if the green bean is limp, that's cooked. It needs to be a little crispy. Then we have leftovers. Even a salad that you made the night before and you put in the Tupperware and goes in the fridge, what happened all night long? You ever take a bite of an apple, let it sit on the kitchen counter for a bit, starts turning brown? Oxygen is combining with the enzymes, destroying the enzyme. Oxidation is called. So when you slice the carrot, cut the lettuce, you put it in the Tupperware, all night long it's oxidizing. There's not a whole lot left. Remember one gal, she understood this concept, and she came in a few weeks later. She said, it was summertime. She said, I don't know how you do this. I said, what? Watermelons. She said, I can't eat a whole watermelon every sitting. So I try. I said, no. It's just that where it's sliced, it's going to lose about that first quarter of an inch will be oxidized. It preserves the rest. Don't eat the whole watermelon in one sitting. Microwaves loses 90 to 99%. Oh, I don't want to hear that. What happens? The microwaves start a vibration process of the molecules in the food. And those molecules striking each other in that vibration create heat. That's what cooks it. So the microwave itself does not produce heat, but the friction of the molecules vibrating. The vibration also happens to cause those enzymes to split off. It's a mechanical process. There was a story written up in one of the medical just recently of a nurse in the hospital, happened to be in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'm from. And they were going to do a blood transfusion, and they were in a hurry. And they have a normal procedure for warming blood, and she stuck it in a microwave because they were in a hurry. The patient died because the life of that blood was killed. But then the medics write that up, and then they turn around and tell us there's nothing wrong with the microwave for cooking food. I've also read in a medical journal, pediatricians said never warm mother's milk. Say mother pumps some milk for the babysitter, never warm it in the microwave. Same reason. Nothing in it. So sell the microwave, buy a juicer. Then we have anything that's canned, fried, anything with additives. There we've destroyed all the nutrition, plus added some additional toxins to the food. On page 13, the acid-alkaline balance of the body. Now, as I began to read nutrition books, as I said earlier, every time I picked one up, I was more confused than one I read yesterday, you know. And I got a hold of a book called Food is Your Best Medicine. It's listed in the back of your manual. Food is Your Best Medicine by Henry Beeler. He practiced as an MD in Hollywood, California for 50 years. He never prescribed one medication. All his recommendations are based on diet. But there was one concept in there that just lit me up. You know, the great aha? That was this idea of acid-alkaline. Now, I studied this in school, acid-alkaline balance. It's very important as far as life, survival. But I was not taught in the perspective that he presented it. And after I read that book and went back and got out the physiology books and looked it up, it's all there. Just the perspective is different. So let's take a look at this concept of the acid-alkaline balance of the body. We have a quote from Guyton's Physiology, which is the most respected medical text. The regulation of hydrogen ion concentration, or the pH balance of the body, is one of the most important aspects of homeostasis or maintenance of life. pH is a measurement of how acid something is. This is the pH scale. It runs from 1, which is termed acid, to value of 14, which is alkaline. Soap has an alkaline pH. Vinegar is an acid pH. Water has a pH of 7, which is neutral. Now, all chemical systems function most efficiently at a specific pH. For example, a swimming pool, 7.2 to 7.6. As long as the water pH is in that range, that pool is healthy. If the water gets a little too acid, pipes begin to corrode. The grouting that holds the tiles in place begins to be eaten away. So what does the pool owner do if the pool water is too acid? What does he do? Adds alkaline. Very simple. All right? If it gets too alkaline, algae grows in the water. So we'll add some acid to pull it back down. Our body likes a pH of 7 to 8. As long as we're in that range, our body is healthy. Perfect health. Our blood pH is 7.4. If the blood pH drops to 7.2, we's dead. All the red blood cells stick together. They don't carry any oxygen and we die. It's called acidosis. Doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. Now, that's not much tolerance, is it? 0.2%. In fact, if it goes up the other way, 7.6, same story. Our body wants to maintain a pH of 7 to 8. What do we mean by alkaline? What is that? Remember those organic minerals we were talking about? You can equate those words. Alkaline with organic minerals. They're one and the same. All right, alkaline. We'll put a few words up here. We'll say raw, organic, living minerals. And you can write just the opposite over on this side. Dead, inorganic minerals. All right? So our source of alkaline is raw minerals. Where do we get them from? Fruits and vegetables. Raw fruits and vegetables, right. You could say, what about raw milk? What about raw meat? It's alkaline. I'm not saying to eat it, but it is alkaline. Now, dairy farmers are telling me that because of the amount of chemicals they put in their foods, because of the tremendous medications they give these cows in prevention of medicine, before they're even sick, they just routinely inject them, that the milk, raw milk, is now, for the most part, acid. Now, that's our source of alkaline, our only source. Okay, what's our source of acid? And on page 15, we have a chart there, and these are listed from the least acid to the most acid. And we'll start off up here with dairy products, then sugar, white meat, fish, chicken, red meat, beef, pork. Pork is not a white meat. I don't care what the pork industry says. See, Americans are switching to white meats. Just called marketing, you know. Then we have coffee and tea, salt, alcohol, drugs and medications, and tobacco. Least acid to most acid content. Now, what does the average American consume? Acid. Yeah, let's get the picture here. Every day that we live, we're going to burn some alkaline minerals, right? We use minerals as part of our structure, but they're also used as catalysts. So every day we're burning up alkaline minerals. Those have to be replaced. What's the only way to replace them? Raw fruits and vegetables. So here you come home at the end of the day, and you check your swimming pool, and you say, yes, it's more acid this evening than it was this morning, right? Because I burned some alkaline. What should you do? It's more acid tonight than it was this morning. What should you do? Add alkaline. What do? You add acid. And we're expecting the blood to say 7.4. Now, you don't have to be a chemist to figure out that that can't keep going on. You can't just keep pouring acid into the system that's already becoming acid on its own every day that it lives. See, you should be adding more alkaline back into the system every day. Just to put in perspective for you, one well-done steak meal, the more you cook meat, or this goes for any food, the more acids are produced. These are inorganic acids. We cannot process them. The acid in an orange, for example, citric acid, that's an organic acid. We can break it down. We have the enzymes to break it apart. After digestion, it's no longer acid. But meat has sulfuric acid, phosphoric acid. We can't digest those. They absorb, they have to be neutralized. They're acid. All right, before I go on, you got this picture now. Every day we live, we're burning alkaline, and on top of it, we're pouring in more acid, and we're expecting our body pH, our cell pH, blood pH rather, to stay 7.4. We're expecting to stay alkaline. I'll just save you some time and money right now. Don't rush off to your doctor and say, hey, check that blood pH. I could be close to death. If you're sitting here, I promise you it's 7.4. Well, maybe a few exceptions, but 7.4. I said I was going to put it in perspective. One well-done steak meal, the amount of acid in there, just to neutralize it, it's going to take 9 meals of raw fruits and vegetables to get enough alkaline to neutralize it. The average American in this country goes 7 to 14 days without eating any raw fruits and vegetables. Last year, what was the grocery bill for 4 people, family of 4, per week for raw produce? Okay, the total amount for 4 people for raw produce per week is $1.74. Now that's just what they left the grocery store with. What did they do with that food when they got home? Did they cook it to death? You know, all the vitamins and minerals on the kitchen ceiling and wall? Or did they leave it in the fridge till it rotted? They use it for decoration for their dinner party? We ask all of our patients to write down what they consumed for at least 3 days' worth, just so I can get an idea of where they are. And I want to read you one here. This is pretty close to the all-time classic, but the reason I'm using it is because it's actually not too far off from what I see most of the time. Day 1, 7 cups of coffee. Now this is, he's just writing down as he went through the day. This is not reflecting, this is how his day went. 2 corny dogs, 1 glass of milk, 2 handfuls of Fritos, 2 corny dogs, 2 6-packs of Coke, 1 diet, 1 cherry. I thought this guy's a health nut, he's having cherry Coke. 3 handfuls of Frosted Flakes, 3 glasses of lemonade, 1 pack of crackers, 2+ packs of cigarettes. That was day 1. Day 2, 7 cups of black coffee, 1 corny dog, 2 corny dogs, 5 handfuls of Fritos, 1 glass of milk, 2+ packs of cigarettes, 2 6-packs of Coke. Day 3, 7 cups of coffee, 12 strips of bacon, 1 glass of milk, 2 hamburgers with cheese and chili, 1 glass of milk, 2 pickles, 2 6-packs of Coke, 2+ packs of cigarettes. I said to him, tell me something. Do you drink 12 Cokes a day? He said, oh, I've done that for 20 years. Now understand, this guy, taking his case history, he would pace. He would not sit down. He was just so revved up. And I said, another thing, I had this diet here, and I said, you know, I don't see any fruits or vegetables on here. Did you ever eat any? Well, his answer disturbed me. He said, now, what exactly do you mean by fruits and vegetables? Said, well, you know, green beans, orange, apple. I said, yeah, you know, I think I had a can of peas about 2 years ago. Now, mind you, this guy has some serious health problems. He's in his mid-30s and looked like he was 55, as you can imagine. But he felt good. You know why he was there? His mom told him he was too nervous. Slightly. So the question is, how in the world do we maintain an alkaline blood when all we're doing is putting acid in this body and burning alkaline every day? How do we do that? Yes? Steal it. That's right, we steal it. And we take the alkaline from our bones, from our muscles, from our ligaments. We take them from all tissues of the body in the bloodstream to keep that blood healthy. If that blood gets too far out of balance, as you saw, we die. Now, how many of you have had the experience, or some friends of yours, going to the doctor, you feel awful. I'm not talking about a flu or something like that. Just in general, you just feel run down, and he runs all the blood tests. He says everything's normal. And then you dare to insist, no, there's something wrong. That's when he says, down the hall, psychiatry. You need some Valium. You've had that experience. You've heard of it. I've seen blood work from people with cancer 3 weeks before death, everything normal. The blood is primary to the body as far as its life, its survival. And so the body will pull the nutrients out of the tissues, put in the blood to keep that blood normal. What it's really doing is pulling the nutrients out, say the bones, to give to the heart, more important tissue for survival. So at the cost of the health of our bones, muscles, and ligaments, our heart survives. I didn't say it was healthy, but it survives. But what does the blood look like? Normal. So at birth, we got a pretty good body pH. But as we start putting in more and more alkaline, what happens is that the cell pH begins to drop. We can actually get down to where it's about 3.5 before the cells are so acid, so inefficient that they quit, and that's called death. So the more acid the cells become, the more inefficient they are. You can call it disease. Disease begins as soon as the cell pH drops below 7. No, we can't name a specific disease. You might say we're in a state of dis-ease at that point. But then we consider that just ordinary, normal growing older, right? The more acid we become, the more we like these foods. Why? Stimulation, right? See, these are now talking the body's language. And the less we like the idea of eating these foods. Here's something you should try sometime. The more acid a person is, they have a definite personality. Their food rules their body, and therefore their mind, and they're a mess. Here's how you pick them out. When they sit down to eat, they'll salt their meal before they taste it, and again after they taste it. While they're waiting on their food, they've got a cigarette and a coffee sitting there. They won't eat the salad. And after the meal, of course, it's dessert and coffee and cigarette. They're very negative people. They don't care who they run over to get where they're going. Very angry people. If you give them a negative, if you give them a positive, looks like a nice day today, they'll give you a negative every time. Well, it could rain. One fellow had a very acid patient, and after he'd been examined, I said to him, what you need to do, and this is the thing you should try sometime, just to see, it's amazing how this works. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you need to eat more raw vegetables. Eat fruits and vegetables. I can't even stand the smell of bananas. The more acid they are, the more they react to just that statement. Interesting. I mean, some people literally want to fight you. I've seen patients fold their arms and turn their back on me when I said that. And that's all I said. Now, I don't understand how that is. Somehow the mind knows, boy, if I start eating more fruits and vegetables, I'm not going to feel so good. That's my life. I kind of believe that our body literally forgets how to even process these. There's evidence to show that. That this is all the only language it knows. So about a year later, this guy, it was 6 months later, he came in one day. He said, guess what? I like the smell of bananas now. He was beginning to change. We had begun to add more fruits and vegetables. But here's the story I was coming to. About a year later, I sat down with him and pulled out his case history. He said, right, let's see how we're doing. I went through and went over the various problems he'd come in with and asked him, well, this is doing better, and that's doing better, and this is not so good, and that's doing better. We got all through it, and I said, well, it looks like you're doing a lot better. Now, remember, he's still acid. He says, oh, no. And he starts naming all the things that are still bothering him. I said, well, I think you're right. I think you're still in pretty bad shape. Oh, no, he says, I'm getting better. So you give them a negative, and they'll give you a positive. That's the acid person. No, you can't stop all this tomorrow. Oh, you can, but like I said, about the third day, you're not going to get out of bed. Because your cells are so acid, so inefficient, they cannot make enough energy to do all that you're asking them to do. So this is not a takeaway diet. not a takeaway program. It's an add to. How are we going to get this cell pH back to alkaline? Gradually cut these out. But here's the way you do it. You start adding more fruits and vegetables. We all like to eat more. Eh? Great. Add more vegetables. And a little bit later in this session, we're going to go through kind of an ideal program to head towards. But I'll give you a few tips right now. You begin by eating fruit for breakfast. And if you say, man, I eat fruit for breakfast, and by 10 in the morning, I am ready to, have bacon and eggs. Say, well, then snack on fruit all morning long for a while till your liver gets cleaned out enough and it can supply the energy on a more consistent basis. Or maybe you might have fruit every other morning, have your bacon and eggs the other mornings for a while. Lunch and supper. Every time you sit down to eat lunch and supper, always have a salad first. Whatever else you're going to eat, start with a salad. Now, when I say salad, I don't mean 3 lettuce leaves and a slice of tomato. That is decoration. We're talking about salad. A good variety of different vegetables. And eat the salad first, chew it slowly and thoroughly. Why? If you were to make a sandwich out of white wheat flour, bologna sandwich, how many of those do you think you could eat before you begin to sense what normally tells you that you're full? 4 to 5, most people. Now, how do Americans know when they're full? They hurt. That's right. One lady said, when there's no food left on the table. Now do that same thing with not with white bread, but with brown bread, whole grain bread. How many sandwiches will you get down before you begin to sense a sense of appetite satisfaction? Maybe 2, maybe. What was the difference? Was it how much food was in there? It was the quality of the food, the nutritional quality. So if you eat the food that has the nutrition in it first, chew it slowly and thoroughly so your stomach has time to register, your appetite will begin to be suppressed. And then when you look over and you see the pizza or the steak, you won't eat as much. You just automatically cut back without even having to give it. Isn't that great? You just cut back. Now in the meantime, your cell pH is going to start coming back towards normal. As the cells become more acid, that means there's more energy in the bucket every morning, correct? As the cells become more alkaline, rather, there's more energy in the bucket every morning. Do you think that the cravings for these food are going to be as powerful, these acid foods? No. But you can see why a cigarette smoker has a hard time. Just to cut it out automatically with not any other changes, his body is literally dependent on that nicotine to give him energy to get through a day. So the answer is not to cut out cigarettes overnight. Rather, start adding more alkaline. Adding more alkaline to the diet. And as the cell pH comes up, you'll find that we start to lose the cravings for these. Now, sometimes we'll have emotional attachments to our food, and that's another story. But if we at least eliminate the physiological attachment, then we have energy to the attitude and the emotion as we should. Now, that's a whole other tape, a whole other seminar that you need to get a hold of, Attitudes in Health. Are you saying that eventually I'll lose the craving for all these? That's what I'm saying. Gone. You say, well, maybe I'm not sure I want to give up meat altogether. Well, I can remember, and for what it's worth, department, I'm not against meat at all. Red meat. If that's what you're struggling, just know that I'm not against eating meat at all. I think that if we were to eat meat maybe once every 4 or 5 years, I think that's enough. Americans just eat way too much protein, way too much. But I can remember when I first began to understand this concept, I loved Mexican food. Now, how many of you are hot sauce fanatics here? Good. All right, yeah. And I would literally have to have it 3 or 4 times a week. And the hotter the better. If I was sweating, if I wasn't perspiring, nose wasn't running, it's not hot enough. If I could put that hot sauce in a syringe and go right in the vein, man, that would have been heaven, right? So I said to myself, all right, I look at the chemistry here. I know I can eat enough alkaline to neutralize that Mexican habit. That way I never have to give it up. 70 to 80% alkaline, 20 to 30% acid foods that we can maintain health. In other words, this 70 to 80% alkaline of our diet is enough alkaline to take care of our daily activities, our daily alkaline that we're burning, and neutralize this 20 to 30% acid. Boy, that was a comforting thought. Oh, I can eat Mexican food the rest of my life. So I began to have fruit for breakfast, salads for lunch, salad and baked potato. I started back in the red meat and the other fried foods. I didn't cut them out totally, just cut back. But I still had Mexican 3-4 times a week and enjoyed it. No guilt. You see, I had it figured out. 80% alkaline. Was about 6 months later I realized I was only craving the Mexican food twice a week. And then a few months later it was once a week and every 10 days. And I began to take notice every 2 weeks and once a month. And eventually the craving left. And then I would go eat some just to find out, make sure. And how did I feel then when I ate it? Not too good. Not too good. Wake up with a hot sauce hangover. Was it worth it? Sometimes it was. Do I have any now? Once in a while. But it's not something I have to have. And when I do, I just have a little amount, just to taste. And that's where we want to get to where the food does not rule the body. Now, this is not a religion. You say, or do you eat meat? No. Oh, you must be a vegetarian. No, I haven't had meat in 8 years, red meat. You must be a vegetarian. No. You see, I never woke up one day and said, no more meat. Never have I said that. Never said, this is it, becoming a vegetarian. What happened was I just lost the taste for it. Gone. If you invited me to your home and you didn't know what I did and you thought you were showing me a good time and you served a nice big barbecued pork chop, what would I do? I would eat it if I felt your friendship would be offended. Your friendship is more important than one meal, because tomorrow I can juice and fast and clean out. No problem. The body can handle that. All right. That's not to say I will enjoy that pork, but I'll eat it. See, it's not a religion to me. I'm not a fanatic about this. Don't become that way. We've got to live in society. We've got to carry on. Just start adding of the right things. The majority of the time, when you're at home, you're not with people. Even when you go out to eat, order the salad and baked potato, and just enjoy the aroma of the meats while you're there. You know. Health can be yours. It's just a matter of adding more fruits and vegetables. Don't make it harder than it is. That's the message of this first half. Don't make it harder than it is. It's something that takes time. It's a process. How long did it take you to get sick? You going to clean it out overnight? No way. Just know that every day that goes by, why not do a little more better than you did the day before or the month before? Continually work at it. We've sort of laid a foundation of the whys and wherefores, how food affects our body, some of the basic mechanics, operation of this body, and now we'll get into the specific process to produce disease. And we'll also end up with talking about the healing process, what to expect as you begin to change your diet, because it's not what you think. It's not what you think. On page 17 actually, let's begin there. If you look up at your ceiling and you see a watermark, so everybody looks up. That's great. Okay. And you decide to fix that. So you get some paint and you paint it. What happens the next time it rains? It's back. So you decide, well, aspirin isn't strong enough. I need a prescription drug, so you get some lacquer and you seal that and then paint it. Hey, that'll work, right? Well, for a few rains, but eventually you'll have a new watermark out around where you seal that off. Now that's a different disease, isn't it? Different symptom picture. It must be a different disease. Same disease, same cause. Then you decide surgery is the answer. So you cut out the ceiling tile and you put up a whole new one. Now when it comes to fixing our leaky roof, none of us would be ignorant. We'd go to the cause. When it comes to fixing this body, we are that ignorant. We think if we've dealt with the symptom that we've cured it. The symptom is nothing more than the body's way of trying to tell us you're doing something wrong. Just the alarm system. It's the same as if the fire alarm is going off and you go cut the wires to the fire alarm. Hey, fire's out, right? Let's say you went and you had some Mexican food last night, and I mean you had a good time. Well, you overdid it, and your body can't digest all that, and so there's rotting material in the intestine. Your body's going to want to get rid of that, because if that sits there too long, we'll absorb those toxins. So you wake up and you have something called diarrhea. That is the body's effort at trying to undo or work with some of the wrong you have done. It's actually doing you a favor. to get the poisons out of the body before they absorb. That's a symptom, is it not? Now, I don't know about you, but if my body was trying to get rid of some toxins, I would want to take some Pepto-Bismol and keep it in. Keep those poisons in the body. Doesn't that make sense? Stop that diarrhea. You bet. No, that's the wrong thing. But we have this mentality, the symptom is the enemy. If I kill it, I'm cured the problem. What should you do if you have diarrhea like that? Take an enema. Help the body out. Absolutely. Make it a much more efficient process. Work with the body. So we need to know that a symptom is the body's friend. It is always, always the body trying to cope with or undo what we've done wrong. Always. Even cancer, as you will see, is the body's way of trying to cope with and keep us alive in the face of the wrong that we've done to it. We're going to use symptoms as our friend. We're going to use them to help us get back on track. Page 18, the actual disease process goes something like this. As we begin to put the toxins in the body, our liver will attempt to neutralize those toxins, trying to keep them out of the body. However, the liver has much more to do than just detoxify poisons. I think most believe that our liver's only job is to deal with toxins. If that were the case, we could probably eat whatever we wanted to, get away with it. But in fact, the liver's main job is to take the food that we consume and process it into a form that the body can use. That's the liver's number one job. Take food that's digested, change it into a form that the body can use. Number two job of the liver is to take the normal waste products, these are not toxins now, the normal waste products coming from our body and eliminate them. The job of neutralizing toxins is a luxury function as far as the liver is concerned. It can do it, but it's only if it has nothing else to do, because it's a very expensive process, and the body has this major priority of keeping nutrition coming into the body. It's called survival. So what the liver does, it will do as much detoxification as it can, but unfortunately, we usually put in more toxin than it can handle in a day, and it starts storing those toxins. That's known as a congested liver. Congested liver. No, this is not a disease. In fact, it won't show up in blood tests. The liver enzyme test that most doctors run only register a problem if the liver is in a disease process, if it's literally falling apart. So this is not a diseased liver. It's like a dirty carburetor. Structurally it's fine, it just doesn't function too well. Something begins to happen here. We don't feel as good because the liver in this congested state is less able to get the nutrition into the body. We may eat just this, but not as much nutrition actually makes it through the liver. So here again, we're already starting to crave everything we're not supposed to have, trying to get some energy, trying to get a lift. Of course, the more we do that, the more congested we make the liver. Well, there reaches a point when the liver says, I can't do this anymore. If I keep holding on to poisons, I'll be so full that I cannot function at all, and then that's death of the whole body. So the liver starts allowing these toxins to pass on into the bloodstream, something it had tried to avoid. Now, when those toxins hit the bloodstream, here's our blood cells. Our glandular system, thyroid, adrenals, pituitary, they'll kick in and just almost immediately, within seconds, begin to make some changes to get those toxins out of the bloodstream into the tissues. Because if they don't, the blood becomes too acid, all the red blood cells stick together, and we die. So under the influence of the glandular system stimulation, the toxins leave the bloodstream and go into the tissues. What tissues? Doesn't matter. Anywhere in the body. We'll find out later why it goes some places to some people and some places in others. Now you see the reason for this? Why are we storing toxins? Here's the cells, toxins in and around the cells, get off the liver's back, and to keep the blood from becoming acid. It's called survival. Now, are these tissues happy about this? Not at all. They're going to react because they were not designed to have toxins in them. The more vitality that the body has, the more energy it has, the closer to the surface of the body it will send the poisons in an attempt to get them out. That's why children have a lot of colds, a lot of ear infections, a lot of bronchial, upper respiratory problems, a lot of skin problems that get to teenage years. The body is actively trying to push the poisons out. You say, why doesn't it use the kidneys? Why not the liver? They're already so full, they can't take any more. This is known as vicarious elimination or alternate avenue of elimination. This is where the body finds another avenue to push poisons out than using the liver, the normal channel. Vicarious elimination. Let's say this is a mucous membrane, sinuses. Question: how many of you have ever had a cold? Ever caught a cold, I should say? No, you haven't been listening today, have you? None of you have ever caught a cold. You've all earned it. You've earned the right to have a cold. Isn't that exciting? Now, what is a cold? The mucous membrane gets so full of toxins, and the body gears up the energy, the metabolism, and says, you're going out. Now, the reason this is a logical choice, because the mucous membrane is already making a mucus that's leaving the body. That's what a mucous membrane is. It lubricates the surfaces of the body that are exposed to air so they don't dry out. So the body says, well, since you're making a mucus that's leaving the body, why don't you take some toxins with it and get it out? That means initially we're going to have a swelling of this membrane because of the extra toxins and their extra fluid accumulation. The mucus is going to be thicker than normal. And we're not going to have much energy because, as far as what we feel, because the body's using the energy to push the poisons out. That takes a lot of energy to do that. You say, I don't feel so energetic when I have a cold. I know, it's because it's being used up in this elimination process. That's a process the body chooses to do. Well, it seems to me we catch colds from each other. Nope. Nope. I thought virus caused colds. Nope. Nope. Why is it that we all seem to catch them at the same time then? Well, what happens in the winter months? What do we do as a nation? Starting about October 31st, we start eating a lot more candy, more red meat, pies and pastries, eat less raw fruits and vegetables, less exercise, less sunshine. Also, the temperature, the atmospheric temperature is dropping. It's colder. That takes more energy. In other words, our liver says, man, I was barely keeping my nose above water through the summer months, but now, no way. And so those poisons just start going into the mucous membranes, and the body wants to push them out. Well, what about this virus idea? Let's talk about infections. Louis Pasteur told us that germs cause disease. He had a couple of contemporaries. Beaucamp was one of them, that you probably never heard of. But his contemporaries said, Louis, we believe there's such things as germs, but they do not cause a disease. On his deathbed, he admitted that they were right. He had tried all his life to disprove them. What he tried to do was grow his bacteria on fruit. It wouldn't happen. He ended up growing his cultures on rotting soup. Now remember that, because when you pick up a medical book today and read about infections, two things have to be true before a bacteria or virus can cause an infection. Two things. Number one, something besides the infecting agent, something besides the germ, has to weaken the tissue. So if we're going to talk about a cold or a sinus infection, here's a bacteria, we're saying that something besides this bacteria has to first weaken this tissue to allow it to enter. The germs cannot weaken the tissue of their own merit. If that were the case, we'd all been dead a long time ago. We could culture anybody's throat in this room right now, we'd find at least 10 disease-producing germs in your throat. Strep, staph, most people carry some TB, some pneumonia, most people. How about that? Why don't you have those diseases? So far, your body's able to resist. So that was number one condition. Something besides the germ must weaken the tissue. Number two, there must be toxic debris for them to live on. All germs, viruses, bacteria are scavengers. There's nothing in healthy tissue for them to feed on.